So you understand operators, you get allowances. Now let's talk about actual pipes that money flow through payment rails. And I know I've mentioned rails before, but there's actually a lot more you can do with them than just pay for storage. Let's get into the advanced patterns. First up, multiple payment rails. Here is something that trips people up initially. A payer and a pay have multiple rails between them. And you might be thinking, why? Why not just one big rail? Well, think about how you might organize your files. You've got a project folder for work stuff, a folder for personal photos, a folder for that side project you've been tinkering with. Each of those could be its own dataset on Filecoin Onchain Cloud, and each dataset gets its own payment rail. Same storage provider, same token, but separate payment streams. Why does this matter? Because each rail has its own terms, different payment rates based on data size, different lockup periods. If you terminate one dataset, only that rail closes. Your other storage agreements continue in effect. It also gives you granular visibility. You can see exactly how much you're spending on your work project versus your personal stuff. When it's all one rail, that tracking gets messy. The Synapse SDK handles this automatically when you create a dataset, but understanding that rail map to datasets helps you design better storage architectures. Now, here where things get really interesting, conditional payments. Remember how I said Filecoin Onchain Cloud is about proofs, not promises? This is where that really shows up. Every payment rail has an optional validator contract, and the validator acts like an arbiter who watches over the payment flow. When it's time to settle a payment rail, to actually move funds from payer to provider, the validator gets called. It can approve the payment rail as is, it can reduce the payment amount, it can refuse to settle past a certain point in time, and it can even block the payment entirely. So, what does this enable? Imagine you are building an application where storage providers only get paid if they maintain a certain uptime. The validator checks proof submission history. If the provider misproofs during some epochs, the validator reduces the payment proportionally. This is fundamentally different from traditional cloud billing. You are not trusting an invoice that says you used X storage hours. The proofs are on-chain. The payment logic is in the smart contracts. It's all auditable. Now, the warm storage service comes with a built-in validator that ties payments to PDP proofs. You don't have to build this yourself for basic storage. But if you're creating custom services on top of Filecoin Onchain Cloud, validators give you enormous flexibility. Alright, now let's talk about monitoring and analytics. One of the beautiful things about on-chain payment rails is that everything is visible. Every rail creation, every settlement, every rate change. It's all there in the blockchain. The Synapse SDK gives you functions to query your rails. You can get all rails where you are the payer for a given token. Get all rails where you are a pay. Check the current state of any specific rail. That rail state tells you a lot. What is the current payment rate? How much has been settled so far? What epoch was the rail being settled up to? Is it active or terminated? For payers, this means you can track exactly where your money is going. For service providers, you can monitor incoming payments and identifying accounts that might be running low on funds. And here's a pro tip. Use the get account info if settled function regularly. It simulates what your account would look like if settlement happened right now, without actually making any state changes. It tells you your projected funded until epoch. If that funded until date is approaching fast, you know it's time to top up your deposit. This is especially important because of that 30-day buffer requirement. You want to catch low balances before providers start removing data. Last but not least, auto-renewal strategies. Filecoin Onchain Cloud doesn't have a built-in auto-renew button. Storage agreements are based on your account balance and allowances. So how do you handle renewals? The most straightforward approach is overfunding. Deposit more than you need for your immediate term. If you want a year of storage, deposit 18 months worth. This gives you buffer and effectively auto-renews as long as funds remain. But that ties up capital, so another pattern is periodic top-ups. You can build monitoring into your application that watches account balances. When fund drops below a threshold, say 60 days of remaining storage, trigger a notification or an automated top-up if you are in DApp-based mode. For user-based scenarios, this is where you send users an email or push notification. There is also the lockup mechanism that I mentioned earlier. The lockup period acts as a guarantee payment window for providers. Even if a payer stops adding funds, the provider can claim payment for that lockup period from the locked funds. So from a provider's perspective, the lockup is your commitment period. If you're building something that needs strict renewal dates, like the annual subscriptions, you can manage this at the application layer. Track when subscriptions started. Set internal expiration dates. Prompt renewals based on your business logic rather than just watching the blockchain. So that's advanced payment rails. Multiple rails, granular control. Validators for conditional payments. On-chain data for monitoring. And application-level patterns for renewal. The payment system in Filecoin Onchain Cloud is genuinely programmable. You are not working with a billing API that someone else designed. You are composing smart contract primitives into exactly the payment flows your application needs. Alright, that's the payments deep dive. Go experiment with the SDK. Create some test rails. See how settlement works in practice. See you in the next one.